Hi, I'm Mark, and today I have a very interesting development for you. A quarter of people in Britain trust the government, but more trust the EU, as King's College found. Few are happy about Brexit. So, British confidence in the EU has increased to 39% 3 years after Brexit. This is the result of the World Values Survey, a representative survey by London's King's College. According to this, in 2022, only just under a quarter had great or relatively great trust in their own government and in Parliament. On the other hand, trust in the EU has increased from 22% in the noughties to 32% in 2018 to the current value. At 49%, almost half of people in the UK are disappointed that the UK Kingdom has left the EU at the end of January 2020. Just under a quarter, with 24%, are happy about it. We need to work hard and fast to build public confidence, said Bobby Duffy, the head of the Policy Institute at London University. The pandemic has shown how much we rely on public collaboration in times of crisis where trust is key, he said. Other British institutions, such as political parties and the media, also scored poorly at 13% each. After numerous scandals, trust in the police fell to 67%, especially in the London Metropolitan Police, and even to 44% among the so-called millennials. In Scotland, where the governing party SNP is striving for independence and a return to the international community, 59% of the people were disappointed with Brexit, more than in any of the other three parts of the country. There, 50% have confidence in the EU. Other British institutions did poorly, as I said, and overall it shows that all the shenanigans from Boris Johnson and all the lies of the Brexiteers have only done one thing: shaken the public's belief in the institutions, and that is a big problem. But of course, in this context and Brexit, I have to talk about King Charles' visit here in Germany. Is the first foreign visit of the new British King Charles III in Germany for a fresh start in the recently shattered relations between Great Britain and continental Europe? The British monarch is building a bridge from the checkered past to a common future in front of the German Bundestag, that's our parliament. Behind this is also the calculation of Great Britain's Prime Minister Sunak, because he wanted it so. Charles provides the pragmatic superstructure for partnership between the UK and the EU. And the question is always here, why do Germans love the royal family so much? And that was also asked by the conservative London daily The Telegraph on the occasion of King Charles' state visit. The monarch tried to give an answer on Thursday at the German Bundestag. What's more, Charles went back more than 1,000 years into the two countries' shared history to commemorate the relationship marked by admiration, friendship and rivalry. He even said almost 2,000 years. Not a word about Brexit and the EU, though. Instead, the British King emphasized the close friendship and ties between the two countries in his speech in the Bundestag. Charles' political and sometimes very personal words were well received, even by the critics. A king who understands German humor and uses it skillfully. He knows that Miss Sophie's "the same procedure as every year, James" is part of a happy German New Year. As is customary among good friends, the cordiality of our relationship sometimes allows for a small smile at the expense of others, said the king. The close friendship between the two countries is something that is the central theme of his speech in the Bundestag. A monarch speaks for the first time in front of Parliament, and then mostly in German. Bilateral relations instead of the EU is his topic, although never naming it. The German historian and aristocrat expert Leonhard Horowski listened to the King's speech with interest because of that, and he particularly notices that Charles deliberately did not mention the EU or Brexit. He has focused on the bilateral relationship, the relationship that can be improved post-Brexit, and that is certainly in the interest of the UK government as well, although there was a lot of Brexit subtitles there. Because Charles is also there on behalf of the British state, it's expressly the case that the British monarch's speeches are checked in advance by the British Foreign Office and the Prime Minister. The Bundestag president, so our speaker Bärbel Bas, emphasized that one thing will also apply after Brexit because she mentioned it. Great Britain and Germany are and will remain close and trusting allied partners. And she also expressed her gratitude for the United Kingdom's essential and major contribution to the liberation of Europe from National Socialism and its friendship with Germany after the Second World War. But she used the right balance, and she didn't forget the Americans. The close ties between the two countries will be discussed again and again during the 3-day state visit, and Charles recalled that he was in Germany for the first time when he was 13 years old. Yes, the day before the speech, he received a photo of his first visit from Federal Steinmeier as a gift. And Charles is even more attached to Germany than his mother, since he descends from the Hohenzollerns through his father, for example. And he is the monarch with the closest family ties to Germany since the First World War. And this is exactly what became clear to historians when he tried to pronounce difficult German words in his speech. The king is someone who can build bridges because he understands German culture. And Jens Zimmermann, chairman of the German-British Parliamentarian Group, emphasized that in an interview with the German news station Phoenix. After the speech, everyone stands there and asks a little more. How did Brexit actually happen? He was surprised at how political some parts of the speech have been so political. And the king praised the German and British leading role in supporting Ukraine in the Russian war of aggression and acknowledged the German contribution. Germany's decision to provide Ukraine with such great military support is extremely courageous, important, and welcome, the king said in German. Unsurprisingly, the king mentions a topic that has been on his mind for years: to meet the existential challenge of climate change and global warming. Renate Künast from the Greens hopes that he will raise the issue just by being there and emphasized this in an interview with Phoenix. He's a bit of a green king, she said. She has known Charles for years and exchanged ideas with him professionally. Again and again, experts are said to be impressed by how well the king knows his way around. The only rivalry Charles mentions between Germany and Great Britain is in football. He expressed his heartfelt thanks for the German sympathy after the death of his mother and recalled her contribution to the reconciliation between Germany and Great Britain after 2 world wars. Even MPs from the Left Party applaud, although there was some criticism of the performance from their ranks. The Left leader Martin Schierdewan criticized in advance, "It's not appropriate that the highest democratic body bows to a monarch." Well, there was no bowing of the MPs, but the greatest possible attention on the German side. In addition to the presence of Federal President Frank-Walter Steinmeier, Federal Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and the presidents of the Bundestag, the Bundesrat, and the Federal Constitutional Court, there were also prominent guests on the grandstand. From there, the former federal presidents Joachim Gauck and Christian Wulff, among others, followed the half-hour speech, and the former president of the German Bundestag, Rita Süssmuth, and 3 other former presidents or speakers. The state visit is intended to open a new chapter in Anglo-German relations. The long and special history of our two, there are still many unwritten chapters in the countries. Let us fill them with a relentless pursuit of a better tomorrow, the king said. And with his appeal, the king ended his appearance in the German Bundestag. And at the state banquet in Bellevue Palace, he had already said that he would do everything possible to strengthen the ties between the two countries. And he said, "And of course we stand side by side to protect and advance our democratic values." In both Germany and Great Britain, the royal visit to Germany is seen as a positive signal, a kind of restart after Brexit, which was initiated on March 29th in 2017, so just a few days ago, by Prime Minister Theresa May's request to leave the EU. But we must not forget, his first foreign visit was now exclusively in Germany. It was planned that he first went to France, but because of the demonstrations against the pension reform, he couldn't go there, so his very first was in Germany now, which was a nice one. And we also were reminded of some things, but there was some subtext. I know the British government wanted Charles to go to France and Germany, and in this case still to Germany. And they wanted to send a signal that they still can work together a lot after Brexit. Some parts of the speech were a bit weird when Charles, and I always have to say the government has their hands in those speeches, talked about scientific cooperation and stuff like that. We all remember the Horizon discussion, which is eased now because of the Windsor framework. But in other parts, there is some cooperation nobody ever thinks about, and it's cooperation from that already started in EU times. We must not forget this. But for example, he mentioned one thing that will be interesting for the people on my military channel as well. There's a bridge pioneer unit in Germany, a British-German bridge pioneer unit, and this is the only kind of this, the only of this kind that exists in the world from the British, cooperating with somebody else. And that the king also mentioned in the Bundestag. And he gave a lot of examples that were a little bit of a subtext against Brexit, because trade in goods is trade in ideas. And Brexit reduced trade in goods quite a lot and is blocking or harming trade in goods. So there was some subtext that obviously the government either didn't see or did allow in this speech that had to do with Brexit, even if the word Brexit and EU or European Union was never mentioned in this speech, and we all know why. But overall, Prince Charles had a very friendly reception here in Germany, and he got very close to the population, and he talked to a lot of people. He visited a lot of places, and so it was well received here, because also the fact that most of his speech was in German. It was interesting to see which parts he did in English in the speech. I saw the whole speech, of course. That was quite interesting as well. And it was also quite interesting who in the Bundestag had to put on their headphones for the translation in the few moments, by the way, when King Charles spoke in English. So that was quite interesting as well, and quite to be expected in some cases, because they grew up in a completely different environment than many of the others. But overall, that visit, of course, is a positive sign, but it cannot, and I have to repeat this all the time, it cannot cover the harm Brexit really did to all these relations. And another point, when I had to laugh hard again under the comments yesterday, but I'm deleting that nonsense. But it's really fun what a fool people make out of themselves, hi dear Brexiteers, because this is only you doing this, with commenting on a video without watching it and making a complete fool out of them. That is so funny, but such nonsense. I don't even reward this by leaving those comments in. And one very important part I also have to add is, right now when this video was published on Outside Views Games, the newest game was published. This time I only have to say one thing for you to know what this trivia is about. I'll see you there, and may the force be with you.